All right, welcome back everybody. If this is your first time, welcome to the channel of Notes to Fret, where we look at turning theory into riffs. If you are a returning viewer, thank you very much for coming back. Hopefully this is your viewing of the third part of Circle of Fifths, and you've seen part 1 and 2. And we really in this third part of the series, we're really going to kind of complete out the entirety of the Circle of Fifths. There is a bonus video after this one just to talk about some of the nuances, but after this video, it really does complete out 99% of everything that you need to know about Circle of Fifths. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Here, Circle of Fifths, we've seen this many times before. The only difference is what I want to do now is bring in the diminished chords, which we haven't spoken too terribly much about previously. So here, again, I'm going to start at the top. We're looking at C major, right? The C major key we know has a C major chord, a G major chord, an F major chord, a D minor chord, an A minor chord, and an E minor chord. Additionally, we know that the relative minor to C major is A minor. All the stuff we've looked at previously. But now what I want to do is bring in the diminished chord. And in C major, the diminished chord is B. Or in A minor, the diminished chord is B. Okay? So in C major, the 7th chord is diminished, which is, in this case, B diminished. And in A minor, the 2nd chord, which is B diminished, is the diminished chord, right? So in any major chord, the 7th chord, or any major key, the 7th chord is going to be diminished. And in any minor key, the 2nd chord is going to be diminished. Now here, when we've had a lot of acronyms thrown around, and incidentally, they do work with the same ones that we've worked with in the past, right? Freaking beads galore, or fancy cats go down and eat big. All of those work with diminished chords, but there's another way to look at diminished chords as well. If you're in a major chord, let's say in this case C major, and you move back a half step, or if you move back 1 fret, you'll be on the diminished note, right? So if I hit a C and I move back 1 fret, I'll be on a B. Correspondingly, if I'm in a minor key, in this case, let's say A minor, if I move up 2 frets, or what we would call 2 semitones, or 1 whole step, I'll be on a B. So this is going to work out all over. Throughout the entire Circle of Fifths, this will always work. If you're in a major key and you move back 1 fret, you're going to be on the diminished note. If you're in a minor key and you move up 2 frets, you're going to be on the note that represents your diminished chord. So let's go ahead and take a look at the fretboard really quick to get a better understanding of what that actually looks like as you're playing. All right, so we're back here at the fretboard again, and now we are looking at our diminished chords. How do we find our diminished chords? And we spoke about if we are in a major key, we just move back 1 fret, or we move back a half step, or we move back 1 semitone. And if we're in a minor key, we move up a whole step, or 2 semitones, or 2 frets, or 2 half steps, 1 whole step. But if we're in a minor, we'll move up 2 frets and we'll be on the diminished key, or the diminished chord, I'm sorry. So again, sticking with C, our favorite, right? If I go back 1 fret, I wind up on B, and that's my diminished, that'll be my diminished chord in the key of C major. So if I'm in C major, it doesn't matter, right? So I'm in C major and I move back 1 fret, or I move back, a semitone. I wind up on B. Okay. Now that works. You know, for any key that I'm in. So if I'm in A major and I move back the semitone, I'm at G sharp. Okay, so again, and you can find A anywhere on the fretboard. I'm sorry, here, and you move back a half step, and you're at G sharp. All right, so, and that's all there is to find the diminished from a major key. And if you're in the minor key, you move up 2 frets or 1 whole step, right? So if I'm in A minor, move up 2 frets, 1, 2, I wind up on B, right? So same thing here. If I'm on A, 1, 2, wind up on B, right? C, D. So again, A, just move up 2, and there I am. And then this works. This works for everything, right? So let's say I'm up here on F sharp minor, right? And so I'm just going to move up 1, 2, and I'm at G sharp. That's my diminished chord. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Incidentally, on this one, you're back at A, and if you move back 1 fret or 1 semitone, you're at the diminished chord again on G sharp. So that's all there really is to finding the diminished chord, and just to kind of keep things complete. If we do anything in the flat, in any of the flats, right? So if I'm here on B flat and I move back, I'm still on, I'm at A diminished. So again, going from the major B flat, then I'm at A. If I'm at G, okay, I'm at G, I'm on the open G string. Well, technically if I move up 1, 2 frets, then I still find my A diminished. So anyways, that's what we're talking about again when we're talking about intervals. They all have a name. Incidentally, 2 frets up is just called a major second. But anyways, that's it. If you're on a major, move back. If you're on a major, you just move back half step. If you're on a minor, move up 2 frets, and you'll find your associative or your diminished chord for the key. All right. So with that, we will jump back into the video for the rest of the lesson, and we will see you back here a little bit later on to talk about fifths and fourths. Take care. All right. So we've looked at this on the fretboard, and now that we kind of have an understanding of, back a fret or up 2 frets, let's go ahead and just kind of finish off looking at it from a circle of fifths perspective. So here, if we're in the G major, we've got the F sharp diminished. If we're in the D major or B minor, we have the C sharp diminished. Same thing with A major or F sharp minor, we have the G sharp diminished. E major, C sharp minor, we have the D sharp diminished. B major or G sharp minor, we have the A sharp diminished. And finally, F sharp major or D sharp minor, we have the E sharp diminished. Now, if we look at this and we remember one of our sayings from earlier videos, fancy cats go down and eat, well, it also works with the diminished chords. And that's because each key, the new sharp that comes into it, is the diminished chord, right? And if you remember, we had an F sharp, and then we had an F and a C sharp, and then we had an F and a C and a G sharp, right? Every time that the newest sharp is introduced, that by coincidence is the diminished chord. But again, you can figure it out very, very easily by looking at the minor note, right? E minor, for example, moving up 2 frets, you're on the F sharp. If you're in the G major and you move back half a fret or semitone, you'll be on the F sharp, right? And so that's how this works. And we're looking at the right side, obviously, for the sharps. And if we look at the left side going counterclockwise, the exact same thing. There's no difference, right? And so, again, if we're on an F from the F major, we go back 1 fret, we're on an E. If we're on the D for the D minor, and we go up 2 frets, or a whole step, or 2 semitones, we're on the E, right? Exact same thing, and we saw this earlier on the fretboard. So again, B flat major, you got the A diminished. E flat major, you've got the D diminished. A flat major, you've got the G diminished. D flat major, you have the C diminished, and the G flat major, you have the F diminished, right? So now that we have all the chords for all the keys laid out, you have a very good picture of really what probably 95% of all music is written with. Now, the only thing I do want to bring up here really quick is a lot of times you'll hear those that are, I guess, resistant to music theory, implying that it, stifles their creativity. They'll look at this and they'll say, oh, well, see, the circle of fifths, you can't even do an A sharp major. It doesn't do anything with that. Well, let's take that into account. First off, you can very easily do A sharp major if you want to. You just use another tool to kind of break it out. But let's take A sharp major for a minute. Let's pretend that because of the circle of fifths, I can't write a song in A sharp major. When I write out the A sharp major, the minor chords and the major chords and the diminished chord, I just wind up with these double sharps, and it just gets weird. You can do it, and it's as long as you understand how the chords are coming together, it's really not a problem. However, what realistically winds up happening is, from a tonality perspective, you're really just doing a B flat major, right? You can call it A sharp major all you want, but tonality, you wind up producing a B flat major piece. You just have to put in a lot of extra work to make it sound good. Because if you just go with A sharp major and you think the double flats, or the double sharps are going to come out well, if you don't really know what you're doing, they're not, or they're not likely to. But reality is, if you do A sharp major correctly and it sounds good, it's pretty much tonality. You have a B flat major. So this is quite complete. And really, anytime that somebody's coming in and saying, "Oh, you can't do A flat major," you can. It just kind of winds up, more or less being G major. So just keep that in mind. This is not pulling anything from your creativity away. This is just giving you, really, this really is how music is written. So take a look at this. Make certain that you understand really what we've spoken about so far, because it does give you a great deal of creativity and ability to write very good sounding music. Anyways, with that being said, what I want to do now is move into why we call this thing the circle of fifths, right? Why do we call this circle of fifths to begin with? We've spoken about the major key, the major chords and the minor chords inside of each key, and the diminished chords now. But we haven't answered why do we call this thing the circle of fifths? What does that even mean? Let's take a look at that really quick. So starting from the top, we have C major, and then we have G major. And again, I'm going in the clockwise direction. So moving from C to G, what does that really mean? Well, we have the C chord, the D chord, the E chord, F chord, and now we have G. Now, that's 5 notes away. And a lot of people go, oh, well, that's why we call it the fifth, the circle of fifths, because from C to G is 5 notes. And that's partially correct. However, there's something more specific as to why we actually call this the circle of fifths. And if we look at moving from a C note to a G note on our guitar fretboard, we will notice that we are actually moving up 7 frets, or 7 half steps, or 7 semitones. Whichever one we want to look at it, we are moving up 7 frets. When we go from C to G, we move up 7 frets. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and talk about some of our intervals. Very rudimentary, basic introduction to intervals. Don't let that term pull you away from the video. They're very easy, but let's take a look at them on the fretboard to understand what we're talking about when we talk about 7 frets away, right? 7 half steps or 7 semitones. All right, so now we are going to jump into talking about fifths and fourths, right? These are our perfect fifths and our perfect fourths. So, right, when we look at the fretboard, once again, we have our open chords, right, or open strings, and down here we have an octave, right? In order to get there, right, we move up 12 frets from the open chord. So we got E, and then we just move down the fret. And we know if we move 12 frets, it's an octave. Well, incidentally, like we were talking about, if we move 7 frets, we have a perfect fifth. So we'll start with C again. And we're looking to go to the next key in our circle of fifths, and we're going down the right side, the clockwise direction, right? And so if I start in C and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I wind up on G. That's a perfect fifth. And that's what we're talking about when we're saying go up 7 frets. And that works everywhere, right? So even if I'm on C on the A string, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? There I am on G, G-A, right? So I wind up 7 frets. That's my perfect fifth. And this works everywhere, right? So if I'm on my open E, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I wind up on B, right? And so when we look at the E major, we move into the B major, and that's 7 frets up, right? That's our circle of fifths. And, pardon, just again for absolute completeness, if we go to F sharp and then we move up 7 frets, we wind up on C sharp, right? B, C, C sharp, bing, right? So again, F sharp is where we wind up, and then we move up 7 frets. And again, it works absolutely everywhere, right? So if I'm on the D string and I'm here at F sharp again, there I am, C sharp, D, C sharp, D. Okay, so that's our circle of fifths, and that's what we're talking about, a perfect fifth. We move up 7 frets. And we also want to make certain that we're looking at the circle of fourths, right? The left side of the circle of fifths, moving in the counterclockwise direction. So, with that, it's still the same thing, only now we're moving up 5 frets for a perfect fourth. So if I'm on B flat and I need to move up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, there we are. We're right there on our E flat, right? So E, F, G, E flat. Again, started on B flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So that's that's all that there really is to it, and we wind up here on our E flat. I'm sorry. And again, it'll work all over the fretboard. So here, right, if I'm on the A string and here I am on B flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And here I am on E flat. E, E flat. And there's that power chord again. But let's take a look at another one. If we're going to talk about A flat, right? We're going to move up to D flat. So we're at our A flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we are at our D flat. Okay, now obviously you can't really do that on the fifth string, but you can do it on the sixth string. So here I am on A flat on the sixth string, right? And if I move up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there I am at D flat. Okay, so one of the things that I want to, again, for completeness sake, I always want to get to either a C sharp or a C flat for these demos. And so here to kind of close it out a little bit, I'm just going to go from the G flat to the C flat. So as we're looking at in our fretboard, we'll start up here on the sixth. A lot of people are just more familiar with the notes on the sixth string typically, so I'm just hang out up here for a second. So here I am at G flat, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there I am at B or C flat. Here C, here C flat. Yes, C flat is technically a B, and that's why things typically that's why C flat is typically left out of the circle of fifths, because technically C flat tonality, it's a B, but whatever. Again, we're at G flat, we move up 5 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we wind up at our C flat. So there's our perfect fourth, right? We moved up 5 frets, and this works again throughout the entire keyboard. So here, if I'm down here on the B string, here's my G flat here, right? And I'll move up 5 again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I wind up here at the C flat, right? Because that's how we did this, and technically tonality is a B, but it's also our C flat. So that's how we are looking at our intervals for octaves and perfect fifths and perfect fourths, and that's how we get circle of fourths and circle of fifths and the whole shindig, right? So really all you need to know right now is if I'm on a key, or if I'm in a key, in this case G flat, and I want to find the next key up in the circle of fourths, I move up a perfect fourth, or 5 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I'm in a major key and I want to find the perfect fifth for it, I'm going to move up 7 frets, right? And so here, if I'm on F sharp, let's go somewhere else, just so it change up a little bit. But here I am on F sharp, right? Now I need to move up 7 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and there I am at my C sharp. So those are the intervals. Let's go ahead and hop back into the video to complete out this part of the lesson. All right, so we've now looked at the fretboard, and we understand that moving up 12 frets gives us an octave, right? And all guitar players know it because those 2 dots that are on most of our guitar necks, brilliant symbology right there, because whoever came up with that, it clearly works, because every guitar player seems to know what an octave is, right? It's 12 frets. But as we spoke about, every single interval on our fretboard has a name, and the interval of 7 frets, or 7 half steps, or 7 semitones all mean the exact same thing. It has a very specific name, and that name is a perfect fifth. That's what we call 7 frets, or 7 half steps, or 7 semitones. We call it a perfect fifth. It's the exact same thing as if we say 12 frets, or 12 half steps, or 12 semitones is an octave. It's just a name. When we talk about 7 frets, we talk about the perfect fifth. And it is truly because of this is why we call this the circle of fifths. It's because of this. Every key that we're looking at on the right side of the circle is a fifth away, right? A perfect fifth away. By the way, if you've ever done anything with heavy metal, you know what a power chord is. The reason power chords sound good is because they're the root and the perfect fifth. So your C power chord is C and G. Your G power chord is G and D. Your D power chord is D and A. Your A power chord is A and E. Right? And that is why they sound good too. But anyways, that's what we're looking at here. So we've looked at C to G, and that might be kind of a basic key to look at. So let's just take a G to D, just really quick. Again, G, A, B, C, D. It's still 5 notes away, and if we go from our C to a D on our fretboard, we still wind up moving up 7 frets, and that is a perfect fifth. Now let's go from B to F sharp. And when we go from B to F sharp, we're still at 5 notes away. Now the one thing I want to point out here is if we're saying we're going from B to F sharp, it means that our current key is B. That's what we're currently in. We're implying that we want to go from B to F sharp, but we're currently in B. And so we have to take the sharps into account, right? So that's why we have the C sharp, the D sharp, and the F sharp, because in the key of B major, there is a C sharp, a D sharp, and an F sharp. So we just have to take that into account. But regardless, we are still going from B to F sharp, and that is 7 frets. And once again, we are at a perfect fifth, right? So exact same thing. Now, just to kind of finish off, if we look at the scary one down at the very bottom, and we talk about F sharp, right? When we go from F to G to A to B to C, everything is a sharp with the exception of B. And that's because we're in the key of F sharp and we're moving towards C sharp, right? So F sharp has the F, the G, the A, and the C as sharp. And so again, that's still 5 notes up, right? So when we're going from F sharp to C sharp, it's still 7 frets, and that's still a perfect fifth, right? So even in the most complex of keys, it still works out just fine. And that's why we call this perfect, or the circle of fifths. It's because of the perfect fifth. There are going to be times when you hear this referred to as a circle of fourths. And I want to talk about why we talk about the circle of fourths here in just a moment. We call this thing the circle of fifths. There will be times when we need to refer to it as the circle of fourths. And typically when you refer to this as the circle of fourths, it's because of a specific piece of music that you're writing. So if you and I were going to write a piece of music in E flat major, and we were going to talk about borrowed chords or maybe transitioning the music piece from E flat major to A flat major, we may say, hey, let's go look at the circle of fourths. But that's a reference to it, right? We're referencing this circle of fifths in a very specific way. If somebody just walks up to you on the street and says, oh, yeah, I'm studying the circle of fifths or circle of fourths, and they just say it outright and they call this thing the circle of fourths, I guess don't be that person. We call this thing the circle of fifths. We refer to it as circle of fourths when we need to. And I'm going to explain why the circle of fourths comes into play. Now, earlier, we looked at this on the right side of the circle, moving in the clockwise direction. Now we're going to look at it on the left side of the circle, moving in the counterclockwise direction. So here, let's again go start at the top, and we'll go from C to F, right? And so we have our C, D, E, F. Well, now we only have 4 notes away, right? But even though we have 4 notes away, we don't know how many frets that is up the fretboard from the C to the F. But if we look at it, and we touched on this briefly, from C to F is 5 frets away, or 5 half steps, or 5 semitones. All mean the same thing. Now, just as 12 frets has a name, which is called an octave, we know that 7 frets has another name, which is called a perfect fifth. 5 frets also has a name. And 5 frets, or 5 half steps, or 5 semitones, the name is perfect fourth. And because of this is why there will be times when this is referred to as the circle of fourths. It's because of this opposing direction. Okay? But again, it's referred to the circle of fourths when it's meaningful from a piece of music you're writing or something along those lines. But you just call this thing in general the circle of fifths. But this is why we're looking at circle of fourths. So with that being said, let's take a look at something more kind of, you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes, more complex. And we're going now from E flat major to A flat major. Again, E, F, G, A, we've got 4 notes away. We have to account that the key of E that we're using to move from has the E flat and the A flat in it. So as we move from E flat to A flat, that is also 5 frets, 5 half steps, 5 semitones, however you want to call it. And that too is a perfect fourth. Okay? So now we can look at something even more complex, seemingly. And now we're moving from G flat major to C flat major. Right, the C flat, right? Everything is flat. But once again, if we go from G flat major to E flat major, we are still moving 5 frets, 5 half steps, 5 semitones, and we are still moving up that perfect fourth. Therefore, the left side in the counterclockwise direction can be referred to, and often is, referred to as the circle of fourths. But this thing, just in general, is if you were going to ask somebody, hey, do you know the circle of fifths? You would say, do you know the circle of fifths? You would not come up to them just randomly and say, oh, do you know the circle of fourths? If you were writing a piece of music with them, yeah, you might refer to it as the circle of fourths. So again, that's it. That's why we call this thing that we're looking at the circle of fifths, and how sometimes it is referred to as the circle of fourths. So now as we look at this, we know all the chords in each one of the keys. We know the sharps. We know the flats. There is everything that we need to know right here. The outliers being C sharp major and C sharp, or C flat major and C sharp major. Whereas, we talked about C major as all or nothing. Other than that, everything is completely covered here. And what we are looking at is you have complete knowledge of what the circle of fifths actually is. The supplemental video that I am going to put in after this one, there are some kind of fine nuances, right? You have 99% of it. Again, I'm pulling that number straight out of thin air. You could have 98% understanding of circle of fifths. And the supplemental video that follows this one just kind of goes into a little bit about the C sharp and the C flat, and right again just dives into a little bit nuanced stuff. But you have everything that you need to go become a great songwriter. I hope these videos were helpful for you. I strongly encourage you to look at the supplemental video following this one. And if you've gotten something out of this, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, a like, and a subscription. And that gives me an opportunity to let you get notified anytime I put out a new video. I'm going to be putting out quite a few. But also, please put into the comments Anything that may still seem confusing to you, I'm happy to clarify. If that needs to be another video, so be it. If it's a direct communication with you, whatever it may be, please feel free. And again, I would love to hear each one of your opinions on the on any acronym that you use to memorize this. Right? I use the fancy cats go down and eat big, girls dance, and every boy fights. Right? Freaking beads galore at the concert. I use all kinds of stuff, but I'd love to hear what you have for your memorization as well. But anyways, with all that being said, this one's been a lot of fun. I hope you do look at the supplemental video. And with that being said, we will see you in the next series of videos. Take care, everybody.